tap water all over his body. This is when a rich man bursts in, noticing the man's strange behavior. So as not to arouse suspicion, he was about to go to the toilet too. The next thing he knew, his urine was shooting straight up into the air. The man is stunned. If he had been found out, he would have been punished severely. Luckily, the rich man didn't look at the ceiling when he left. However, the urine suddenly went to the alarm and set off the alarm. The man ran for the door. He then passes through the tower that connects the two worlds to his own world of the poor. The next day, the man returns to the tower and goes back to work. This is the place where the two worlds meet. The poor and the rich are divided by gravity. They are divided into two levels. At this point, the leader suddenly made everyone stand up and announced that there was an immediate layoff for anyone who broke the rules. The men thought that yesterday's events had blown over, but the man who announced the dismissal was actually his friend Tom. After the others had left work, Tom threw a box to John. Inside was an access card to the upper world. With the access card, he was finally able to complete his plan. He slipped the anti-gravity device into his shoe. In the next second, he could walk on the ceiling like a rich man. Then he used the access card Tom had given him. He managed to break into the rich neighborhood. Once in the rich neighborhood, he made his way to the Sunset restaurant, ready to have dinner with the goddess, even though she'd forgotten about their 7-year affair. But John used his words to capture her heart once again. But just as the two of them were getting to know each other, there was a sudden smell of smoke under his feet. John looked down and saw the antimatter had failed to heat up. John had no choice but to end the date early. Just as the antimatter was about to ignite, John jumped into the river just in time to escape. He threw the antimatter and his shoes down in the water. The next thing he knew, he was flying straight up. He then fell through the clouds and back into the world of the poor. But he was in the distant year of 2023. Mankind has mastered the technology of rejuvenation. The man applies anti-gravity foundation to the old man's face. The next second, the old man looks 18 years old again. The experts on stage applauded the medical miracle, but the man dodged and tried to find a hole to go into. It turned out that his girlfriend from a wealthy neighborhood was there too. The world was turned upside down in her eyes. If he was found out to be poor, he would have been disliked, but unfortunately his girlfriend eventually found him out. John didn't understand until she left. It wasn't his status that made him angry. It was the deception. Just one day earlier, John disguised himself as a rich man from the upper class to have dinner with his girlfriend, so John's claim that they were once lovers might have been a lie too. As he watched his girlfriend walk away sadly, John rushed to put the anti-gravity device into his suit so that he could walk on the ceiling like a rich man. But just as he was getting on the lift, he was a step too late. He then made his way to the sky tower. He then goes to the tower and tries to get to the rich zone with the door card given to him by his colleague Tom, but then the card suddenly became invalid. In his haste, John crossed the security checkpoint and broke in. He was spotted by the police. John ran away from the police and tried to escape, but the police weren't going to let him go. In the end, John managed to escape the chase by hiding under a hole in the bridge, but the anti-gravity substance was about to fail. He spent the night sleeping under a flyover. After this incident, John decided to give up his pursuit of his girlfriend. The next day, before he left, he found his friend Tom, and Tom told him how he invented the anti-gravity potion. He said he would go back to his poor neighborhood and continue his life. But that night, his girlfriend called again and invited John to meet her in a tower in the sky connects two worlds. The people at the top live a rich and fulfilling life, while those at the bottom are left to fend for themselves at the bottom. John, a poor man, was invited by his girlfriend to a date in the clouds. John was sitting at the top of the peak staring up at the sky when his girlfriend came from above. It turns out that his girlfriend had a heart attack last night. She had lost her memory for 7 years and it had come back to her. She remembered her first date with John on the clouds. This was the place where their love began. Now, 7 years later, the two decided to renew their relationship. Soon John is in his girlfriend's world, but there's a rule in the rich neighborhood that you can't fall in love with the lower classes. They had barely gone a few steps when they were suddenly confronted by the police. In desperation, John took his girlfriend to the bottom of a hill to escape, but there was no way out. In the nick of time, John took off his anti-gravity device. The two of them cling to each other. He tries to take his girlfriend to the next level. They jumped repeatedly across the air along the flying rocks. Just as they were about to escape, the police suddenly broke the rope attached to the boulder. The two of them soon lost their balance, and in order not to drag his girlfriend down, so he let go and fell hard. Luckily for him, he survived by the cushion of the trees. When he returned, John was devastated. Now he is wanted by the higher-ups. He would never see his girlfriend again. But that day, Tom, his best friend who lives in a rich neighborhood, finds him. Seeing that Tom could overcome gravity without the use of equipment, John was overjoyed. It turns out that Tom had been working on the recipe for John's. He had been working on it. He eventually used his skills. He was able to develop a practical potion just by drinking a bottle, and the gravity problem would be solved permanently. And Tom brought John a letter containing an address left for him by his girlfriend. At the end of the story, John followed the address and found his girlfriend. Little did he know, at this time, his girlfriend was suddenly 3 months pregnant. From then on, they lived happily ever after.